Billions of years ago, life began. Little did it know it would become something more. Something Joe. When the megacore ascended from our world to Joe's, new space and new time were formed. The megacore began no larger than a grain of sand. It grew like nothing had grown before. Shortly, the 4 Jods were born from its hair, veins, and flesh. Unlike the smaller cores that the megacore would generate spontaneously in the void until the end of time, the Jods were not tethered to the core. The megacore remains highest, of course. Soon, original Joe and its colony were formed through the power of the megacore, shaped by the Jods, holding the powerful Joe symbols of the 4, the tablet, and the livestock. Joe flourished in the void. Vending machine food was affordable. Then came the downfall of the first Joe Empire. Hi, it's me again. That guy with the box on his head who made that video about the really cursed language. It sounded like something being tortured. Today I'm going to show you around what I'd say is my largest world building project and also my first cursed line. What you just witnessed there was the first chapter of the sacred text of the JOEVERSE, which is a collaborative project made by me, my sister, and my cousins. It started many years ago. I don't even remember when. Basically, we were at some family gathering or something like that. One of us pulled out a lined notebook and we just started drawing random doodles. We made some lore for what we'd created, and it was the early days of Joe. We kept working on Joe whenever we saw each other, and at one point I decided I'd make a conlang for it. I was pretty new to conlanging at the time, so what I made was pretty bad and very Englishy. The JOEVERSE is currently split into 2 time periods, the First and Second Empires. What I'll show you today is the tongue of the First Empire. The plan is to continue with this project and make a conlang for the Second Empire. I'll explain more about the split when I get around to doing that. But for now, I present to you Jaw, the tongue of the First Empire. Let us begin with the phonology, of course. The concept I had in mind was to use the J sound a lot. We love slapping J onto English words to Joeify them, like the jalm tree here, for example. Hence, the only consonants in this language are the voiced post-alveolar affricate and its component fricative and stop. As for the vowels, Jolang uses a typical 5-vowel system. It also has 2 tones, high and low or not high. To create a decent amount of words, I simply used a consonant vowel syllable structure with an optional extra vowel. Here's the slightly cursed part though. 2 different vowels next to each other are realized as a diphthong, and 2 of the same are realized as a long vowel. Furthermore, high tones on the first or second vowel result in falling and rising tones respectively. Shown here is a table to demonstrate. This is what I had written for the syntax. I don't know, just take it with a grain of salt. I didn't really know what I was talking about back then. I kind of just translated based on vibes. Jolang does have the interesting feature of tripartite alignment though. That is, there are separate pronouns for the agents of transitive and intransitive verbs. Here is a look at said pronouns. Very systematic vowel choices. I think I intended it to be unnatural. Here are some pronouns used in sentences. I'm not the best at tones, but let's give this a go. 就地住 translates to we are sitting. 就得得 translates to I am slapping you. The language of Joe is mostly analytical. However, I did make these verb tense endings. I suppose I could probably function as particles really. Notice how I included the iterative and habitual aspects just to be quirky. There are noun endings to encode for plurality that could also function as particles. The language has a base 31 number system. 961 and 29,791 also have their own special names. I never made that much vocab for this language, mostly just root words for important things in Joe culture. I'm guessing some of these nouns reference things in drawings of Joe that we did that are now lost. So that was the Joe language. Pretty basic and boring, honestly, but I remember it being fun to make. So now I'm going to read the first few lines of Joenesis, the first chapter of the Joe sacred text, which I showed at the beginning of the video, translated into Joe. I'm not the best at the tones, as I've said before, but we'll give it a go. Okay, the first line is a translation in JOEVERSE. The second line is a pretty bad gloss. I couldn't be bothered to like actually learn how to do it properly. Uh, yeah, just ignore that. The third line is a literal English translation, and the fourth line is the official Genesis English translation. Dal de do joa de, jo 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 zhao dia, zhu di zhuo do zhe dia, do du zha die, zhuo do zha zheo dai da, zhi zhou zhu dai da, zhou zhu zha diao, zhao jue dia de, zhao zhu jiao da zhao zhu jiao, zha du dia zha, zhou do zha zheo zha dio, di do da, diao zhu zhao dia, zhui do di zhai dia da zhuo. Well, I'm gonna leave it there. This video took like hours and it's only 6 minutes long, so it would be really good if you could like, I don't know, like it or subscribe even so that the algorithm likes it and stuff. Uh, bye.